Oh gosh, okay. So I made it to age 50. Holy crap, I never thought I would see the day. I would say maybe, 50 years? No, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I would say I don't know if I would live to be age 30, 40, 50, 60. I had questions. I had questions on my own longevity. I had a lot of questions. Yeah. And guess what? I made it to age 50. And doing relatively okay. I'll tell you, man, it's been a very difficult journey to get to age 50 and be where I am today. It was very difficult. And it was nothing like I expected. Okay, I don't even know what to expect. But here I am, because it's a day-by-day process. And why is 50 so significant? Because it's a halfway point between 0 and 100. And why is 100 so significant? Because 100 means that's what the average, or what people want to live to, but they strive to live to 100 and even beyond, but they don't quite make it. They fall short, or if they do make it, they're so decrepit, they might as well have died 20 years later or 20 years earlier, because their life was like, okay. I mean, they're seeing stuff that's new based upon where they came from, but it's just a matter of time when the climate changes and they get taken out. So 50 is significant based upon numerology. 5 is significant based upon numerology, the Old Testament, New Testament, all the different religions and sciences and everything. 55 numbers are significant. Okay, numbers are significant. And yeah, discovering the Hayflick limit. Discovering that Hayflick limit of somatic cells versus immortal germline cells, and his concepts, and he's proved it over and over again, that the aging process is based upon the body redoubling itself about 50 times over. And sometimes you could be in the 40th redoubling itself effort, you could be in the 20th, you could be in the beginning, where you have still 50 times to figure stuff out. You're so fertile, and your kids are really strong, and they're able to come back from disease and cancers really quickly and survive and all of that. Some people are at their last lifeline. Not only are maybe they're single or they don't have any children, but they have diseases and cancers, and they're on their last lifeline. And then they don't survive. Like, this life was their last lifeline. What would have been their next lifeline? Well, if they had kids, but even if they had kids, their kids may not even survive. It's so crazy. There is no universal pat answer for everyone where they are on the lifeline of the 50 times redoubling itself, the somatic cells, and whether or not they were able to realize the next immortal germline cells and go on to the next cabinet of 50 times redoubling itself. And so you don't know where people are, so you can't even like predict people. You can't. They have to be the one to know, first of all, what they're dealing with, what they're working with. And that's why you have to know your blood types, because then you know what you're up against. But you'd have to know their lifestyle, their belief systems. You'd have to see. Oh my gosh, that's why I stay on my own page. I don't do any more of this advertising the Jilly Juice world to anyone, because what am I promising? I can't promise anything. I can give you information, even then that's not enough. But the concepts, the scientific concepts, are something that people need to pay attention to. And if they don't pay attention to it, then they'll reproduce themselves out of existence through remedies, through surgeries, through having a bunch of children, through being out there. Because even when I'm out there, when my husband comes home, I still have to blow my nose and cough and sneeze. Okay? I still have to, release demons. I still have to eat food, obviously. But some days or weeks are worse than others because of how much exposure to diverse microbes that causes offspring that causes me to cough, sneeze, blow my nose, and eat more food and rest and all that. So, so even being exposed to different people causes reproduction. That's why why you can't really blame the VACCINESs for people's issues, because they could be on their 49th lifeline. Their child could be on the 49th lifeline, and they went through another reproduction called climate change because they were around a bunch of people and the environment was so accelerated, it caused reproduction they couldn't handle, and they converted themselves out of existence because they didn't have any reserves. That is a financial term. That's a concept. You should be liquid. What do you mean liquid? Well, when I have enough of an immune system and stuff goes through my body and it wants to turn into an own entity that tries to work against me, I have enough immune system to go and liquefy the opposing forces in my body, and it comes out in my lymph nodes, under my boobs, my armpits, all the different lymph nodes that you can go and Google and figure out where it is. My pee, my poo, the sweat, spit, hawking loogies. Okay, I'm solvent. I can liquidate. I can liquidate when I need to. When people can't liquidate, they're so invested in everything, but they can't liquidate, that's when they are subject to the market environment. And sometimes the market will take a turn for the worse, and you have all your eggs in all these baskets that you're not liquid because it can't be, and then the market goes and bankrupts the fuck out of people. And that's what's going on right now. When people are dying suddenly, they're on their last lifeline, and they are not solvent. They are insolvent. They're not liquid, heavily invested in everyone and everything, and then they're done. They're freaking done. And so, yeah, this weekend, the barometric pressure is definitely aggressive. I even heard the long tones in my ear. I don't post it on Facebook anymore, so I don't even care for shit. How many times am I going to do that for the next, 7, 10, 20? The weather, California's getting hit, Florida's going to get hit. You know, we're in some inclement weather. It started getting warm, and then it'll get cold again, and it'll get warm again, and more sirens. I heard so many sirens yesterday. I heard so many sirens this whole weekend. And when it's cold and stays cold, no, you don't hear as many sirens. But when it's cold and goes warm and cold and go warm, that's like spring allergy season and cold and flu season. People get sick when the barometric swings so wildly. That's called climate change. And so you're in the ultimate reality show. You're in the ultimate gaming reality show of lifelines. And some people are on their last lifeline. Some people need to retire now, or they won't have any enjoyment to enjoy their loved ones. Okay, some people need to retire now because they're on their last lifeline, and it's a question if they're going to survive even this year or next year. There's indicators out there. People are being deleted as we speak. What do you mean being deleted? The microbes in the body, the negatives. Remember, everything's about math and physics and biology and algebra. When I figured out the whole PEMDAS, which starts off with the parent, ends with addition and subtraction, right? Parentheses, ends up with addition and subtraction. That's PEMDAS. That's the order of operations. And then also the integers. That has to do with your antigen antibody programming, your blood type. And you're getting deleted when you have so much antigen, not enough antibodies to balance it out. That's when people are getting deleted. Their body's falling apart. That's why you better know your blood type if you're going to try to figure out how you're going to navigate and strategize your survival. People who don't know their blood types are flying blind like you would not believe. But you can't tell them that because they know better. Okay, fine. It's your fucking funeral. And so, yeah, I figured out integers, and I figured out even how to characterize how I would apply the antigen antibody, positive and negative, and how the integers, the rules of integers, positive times a positive, yeah, that could be antibodies. Antigen could be negative. But why is it always positive when you times the positive times a positive and negative times a negative? Why is it always positive? Because either way, you test positive for an infection, or you're just increasing in substance. You're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So obesity is like major positives, right? Not saying positive like literally like, oh, it's a happy thing, but you're increasing in pressure. Positive pressure, so much pressure, so much pressure. But one day when that pressure when the body cannot handle that much pressure anymore, then it starts to deflate. When it deflates that fast, it turns into negative, and then people age quicker, losing so much weight faster, age quicker, falling apart faster than that positive, that once was a positive, from one extreme was a positive, turned into a negative. So it's all relative. So then you have negative times a positive, and positive times a negative equals a negative. That means that, yes, there's energy conversion, and you're always going to be in a deficit when there's energy conversion, because you have to use something up in order to develop something. That's thermodynamics. That's physics. And you can Google the laws of thermodynamics. You can Google the laws of Newton's law of motion. You can Google all the different laws of relativity and special relativity and all of those, and the inverse square law and all those things that the physicists in the Middle Ages and even recently within the last 100 years, 50 years, 80 years have discovered. The Hayflick limit. That was my recent discovery, was the Hayflick limit. And that's not readily advertised out there. It's known in the sciences world. It's known in biotech, UCSF, Stanford. Not that I went to any of those colleges, but I was around highly educated people. It's like osmosis. When you're around a highly educated community, you can't help but pick up stuff. Even if you don't even know how to apply it to whatever, because there was no context to apply it, you pick up stuff and you remember it. So my recent discovery was the whole Hayflick limit, and then, oh gosh, I'm turning 50 today. I turned 50 today. And I've been through what you call a type of premenopausal type of shit. That's what the PMDD was basically premenopause. Since 30. Can you imagine women who have been highly sexualized at a young age, was able to act out the programming and have a great life? Yes, that's awesome. But then the diseases, when you think about it, all the diseases that women get before they get actual menopause is premenopausal shit. Literally premenopausal stuff. And it causes, well, it comes out in disease. The body's breaking down because it's changing. But then how do you support the changes, women? Well, we've been taught to treat ourselves to death. What is it that PEMDAS? Parents expected to medicate diagnoses as soon as possible. You're the parent to your own microbes. When you feel disease, you're out there remedying everything, treating everything to death. And so that's what we've been taught. So then with all of those treatments, regardless of what they are, I don't care if they are a public health treatment or something else, it causes fertility. It causes reproduction. It causes the body to reproduce itself out of existence at some point, and even more disease that must be treated yet again, causing more fertility, more reproduction. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reproduce a child, but you can be reproducing a mycoplasma that Dr. Hayflick figured out, walking pneumonia, mycoplasma pneumonia. And then that takes a person down exponentially. Those opposing forces deteriorate. That's the whole gerontology. That's what he discovered. He's a gerontologist. And he received so many awards. Well, fuck yeah, he should receive those awards. That's awesome shit to know. Because that's something to know. Doesn't mean I have to follow in with that I just age out at 50 and just die maybe at 60 or 70. But then I know that I have to bypass the Hayflick limit and realize the next line of immortalized germline cells and develop a cabinet of somatic cells that could potentially redouble itself and give me another 50 fucking years. That's not too far from the realm of possibility, and that actually scientifically makes sense. Just because he figured out that there's a 50 limit on one line of immortalized germline cells doesn't mean that you don't have access to the next one if you understand how to support those changes properly and effectively. And that means giving birth to yourself almost every single day, especially during this climate change, because you're now releasing the old world and you have to take on the new microbes, whatever they are, and you don't know where they came from or what they're doing, but you have to be able to assimilate to your new environment and release the old world. So when you're giving birth to yourself, you're pulling out the offspring that could potentially turn into a mycoplasma that would destroy you, Or if you were young and fertile enough, it would turn into a baby and sexuality and hotness. And so you have to figure out, what do you want to give birth to? Another virus, another baby, another cancer, another disease, or give birth to yourself and keep living on. Those are your choices here. But you're not given those choices readily because some people are so at a deficit, like so much at a deficit, that for them to come back and give birth to themselves in a literal sense would be literal hell on earth. It would be so painful. They would need a lot of services, a lot of support. And if you think people are so intolerant now and can't handle being on their own now, imagine if they're in pain trying to figure out how to give birth to themselves, and they don't have the mental capacity nor the physical capacity because they don't understand how that shit works. They don't have the wherewithal to understand even now. No, so the system will keep encouraging those who are way behind the eight ball to just live out this one life that they were programmed to live. And that part of the whole J world, because that's part of the J world, is watching that part of the world suffer and die off. That sucks to watch, but it's necessary. So then you learn, even if they're blood type A, B, or O, whatever it is that you are, you have to strategize your survival and learn what not to do in their world. And that's why I don't have animals. Because that exposure to animals, living with animals, you're dealing with more offspring that you're going to have to feed in your body, not only feed in your house, but feed in your body, your mind, your spirit. And that's also competing entities that could potentially turn into something if you don't understand how that works. And that's a lot more stress to add to your life, not just about whether the animal dies or not, because that's, in this environment, there's no telling, when they're going to go through that suffering, and people don't want to see animals suffer, so they're either going to treat it or treat it to death, and it dies anyways. But it's also, why have those competing forces in your household? If you're trying to release demons out of your body, why would you hold on to demons around you of conflicting programming? And then I understand when people have kids, I get it. No different than having a bunch of microbes in your body that are colony forming units that are working against you that you have to go and release and deal with and feed and all that stuff. Well, now they are actual people in your house that you have to deal with. Their attitudes, their needs, their wants, all that. And that's, oh my God. So I give anyone who's a parent right now in the J world, I give you so much fucking credit for saving yourself and for also still trying to figure out how to keep your kids alive and still give them options, because you can't force ideologies if they think one way and then you're like, well, it's time to change now, and you can't force change on your kids. So you still got to watch whatever they're dealing with, and you still got to keep yourself alive and change and figure out how you're going to straddle both worlds. So I give anyone who's a parent in the J world so much credit, because you're up against a lot. That's why I don't take care of anyone out there. I don't hang out with too many people. I don't have any animals. My husband and I are taking care of this house. He was piddling around fixing lights. It was so nice to hang out with him this weekend and learn about his background and his ancestry. And I'm watching, Grey's Anatomy and all that stuff, and watching them glorify all the things they glorified way back in the early 2000s. And then watching how people are still applying those lifestyles and belief systems from 2000s and 1990s and 80s today. And that's the reason why they're now re-airing some of these shows that you binge on. So it is a major mind control. But it's fun watching that from the outside looking in versus someone that's like, oh, I want to be like Grey's Anatomy. Ooh, I want to be like, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. No, that was the programming. So anyway, this weekend was super eye-opening. Just with the patterns that I have established, that I have observed in even the growth. I mean, I had a few hives, nothing crazy. Okay, really, it was just the coughing, the sneezing, the blowing the nose, and the hawking of the loogies that I have to do every morning, because with the way these fluctuations are going, you're developing growth every day. And when you're developing growth every day, it's going to turn into a monster if it's not regulated. And I don't know how you want to regulate it. It's all up to you, and figure out what it is you can handle. But I see now that I got over that HV1 and the JN1, and that was a formidable variant. That was a formidable virus. Oh yeah, it's part of the COVID family. Oh, and I got big. I got super huge. I felt bloated. I felt a little bit bloated this weekend, but not too bad. we had a little bit of a stomach ache yesterday. And because of the heat, I mean, it's 27 degrees right now. Okay, but it might be at 46 today, but yesterday was 51. It was actually hot. I turned my heat down to 68 versus 70 because I actually was sweating. Oh, it's Jillian, it's menopause. Sweating means that there is, I don't say like infection, like something that you would diagnose, but it's growth. When you're sweating, there's energy going on in the body. Your immune system is working. And I don't have to go and jumpstart and go exercise to sweat. I just have to sit with my immune system working the way it's supposed to. And even my arms get sore. But before, when I was going through that JN1 HV1 variant that caused such bloatedness and hunger and fatigue and all that, my arms were so thick and they didn't have like huge range of motion. I mean, some people would say frozen shoulder. No, I mean, it was just a minimal arm pain, a little bit of feeling the opening of the lymph nodes, and it was coughing season below my nose, and a little bit of diarrhea yesterday, and that was pretty much it. My husband, he said a little bit of diarrhea, no big deal, but he's at work right now, and we got shit done. Okay? And again, my husband's O negative, I'm O positive, so he's his own balancing force and has the energy to balance both worlds. I'm O positive, that's why I keep taking on everything around my environment, and it will metastasize. And sometimes it wants to stay in the body, but I know, how do I manage the life of my body where it's not taking over and turning into cancer disease, chronic illness, and even crazy obesity? Well, I understand my lower immune system, and I pull out those demons and I keep feeding. And milk is so necessary. That's why I posted those pictures of milk with calcium. And milk gives you the life. It gives you the fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. It gives you the lactic acid. And then, of course, eating the meat. Okay, and yesterday I was a little bit snarky because I see some of these vegans and vegetarians who happen to also be cannabis users. And they're like, oh, when your meat is like basically almost raw, or if you're eating meat, then you're a cannibal. You'd eat humans. Oh, yeah, but then I also saw that person posted how he's so sexual. He likes doing women. Okay, so when you're eating CUNNINGLULINGUS, when you're eating people through SCX, that's cannibalizing people. That's literally cannibalizing people. Sexuality is cannibalization of humans that then turn into they crap out babies or poop. That's what sexuality is. It's people cannibalizing each other and they shit out babies or poop or disease or cancer. So that's why even those in the LGBT cannot say that they're better than the breeders, because either you're breeding children or breeding disease, and both are breeding both because they both can have children. Okay? So I don't want to hear anyone say that one sexual orientation is better than the other. No, you're both breeding children, you're both breeding disease, you're both breeding so much intolerance. So I don't want to hear it. And so I'd rather eat cows than eat humans. Now, with this whole lab-created meat, people are like, oh my God, you can use human meat. There's no proof of that, and even if there was, it doesn't even matter. Because you need amino acids. Everything is reduced down to fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. If you want to call it a cow or call it something else to make you feel better, even if it's not and there's actual human cells, well, shit. When you have strangers making food and they happen to cough, sneeze, and blow their nose and there's microbes in the air, you're eating humans anyways. You're eating their microbes. When you're in a restaurant and everyone is hanging out together and it's hot inside that restaurant, all the ectoplasm is all these microbes that are getting into your food, into your lungs, and your air and water and everything. You're not immune to freaking humans. But you can regulate how much of the humans you ingest based upon your lifestyle and your belief systems and your movements. Okay? So... So the milk is so necessary. Meat is so necessary. Sugar and salt and gluten is so necessary for strong bones. Okay? But then you hear these people like, oh God, milk is so bad. You're not supposed to eat from baby cows. Yeah. And these kids are on soy diets, eating soy this, soy that. They have milk allergies. They're coming in at a deficit. Just because they're alive and they're speaking doesn't mean that they have the strength to handle energy conversion. Just simply developing life through procreation isn't enough, people. It's the kind of life you're developing. It's the strength of life you're developing. It's the tolerant kind of life that you're developing. And I see people developing life that is intolerant, that is short-sighted. Parents are short-sighted, the kids are going to be short-sighted, and then, shit, it's just be a question if they survive. And so anyways, you are in the ultimate reality show of gaming, and you are on your last lifeline if you don't understand. Game over when you utilize your last lifeline. Sometimes it's a treatment or an herbal remedy or a diet regime or an exercise protocol. Mothers who die at childbirth utilize their last lifeline. And so their kid's the next one, but then it's only a matter of time if that kid is their last lifeline or second to last. And maybe it actually, by 2045, 2050, most humans in the West will be utilizing their last lifelines because the environment is going to cause them to reproduce so rapidly that they utilize their lifelines faster than they would have maybe 20, 30 years ago. That's what climate change is. It's accelerating you're reproducing offspring, wherever it comes from, whether it's from animals in your house, people in your house, or your lifestyle, or how many sexual partners you have, or even the one sexual partner you have. If you are now activating things so aggressively because of the frequencies and all that, and then people are getting diseases because you're seeing the barometric pressure go up and down, that's causing more offspring. Yeah, by 2045, 2050, people will be infertile. Because they are a long line of people who are pretty much on their last fucking legs. Not only are their belief system is to remedy every disease away, but to also have 1 billion kids. The traditions of having children, getting married and having children. And then, of course, treating disease. So when you have so much disease because of the barometric pressure rising and falling almost on a daily occurrence, daily basis, you're going through your lifelines faster. Children are. Children haven't even developed fast enough to develop enough lifelines to give them that energy conversion. So even these kids are growing up at a deficiency, and then you see them dying at 20, 22, 23, even at 50. A lot of people are dying at 50. People who die after all the different treatments have utilized their last lifeline. The constant extreme fluctuations of the barometric pressure causes reproduction, thus encouraging people to reproduce themselves out of existence. Not only having children, but also having different diseases. Hospice, when you have used up all of your lifelines with treatment, that includes all remedies, herbal and whatnot, detoxes, and whatever else people are offering to each other, even food mitigation diets. See, so when you're utilizing all your lifelines, right, you're reproducing disease and mucus and poop and pee and children and cancer. Well, when you're going like, oh God, milk is poison, meat's poison, everything is poison, so you're not feeding yourself and the body's cannibalizing itself, yeah, you're in delete mode. You're in delete mode. There is a Pac-Man just eating everything out of sight. The system will keep giving you pleasure and paradise as you keep reproducing and encouraging families. So you utilize your last lifeline and you don't survive because if you keep reproducing yourself out of existence, you will have diseases along with having so many children. And see, back then when my husband and I were looking at his background, like where he came from, and he can trace things back to like 1890, and on his mother's side, really awesome. It's a German side, and they had so many kids back then. And of course they had farms. And of course for you to have a farm and have a working farm of survival, you need to have a bunch of kids to make sure that everyone was, taking care of the animals and the farm and survival and growing the crops and all that. But then also there was a lot of disease, I'm sure, because you're now weakening the genetic line with all those children. And so then the system had to figure some stuff out. So they figured out how to develop cities, and you have people working in the cities and the farms. and then not many people having children because they're working, you know, they don't need to have so many children. I mean, if you live in a tiny little apartment house in the middle of the city, having 50 kids doesn't make sense. But having 50 kids out in the country makes a lot more sense than having 50 kids in the city. So then they figured out some stuff so you can then control birth in the city and all that. And anyways, so we were learning about that. And so the system will keep giving you pleasure in paradise and encouraging families to utilize your last lifeline and you don't survive. Because if you keep reproducing yourself out of existence, you'll have diseases along with having so many children. Having children, it takes away so many lifelines from that parent. Okay? So when someone has so much disease, that's why they want to be cured, so they don't utilize their lifelines. That's what I'm saying. That's why the cures market existed, but that was in a slower frequency. When you have a cures market in a slower frequency, you can stay relatively cured and produce and slowly deteriorate. That was the old world. That was why you had people who've had so many successes were programmed like Britney Spears or Taylor Swift or Albert Einstein, because they were relatively cured and they were able to produce what they needed to produce while being relatively cured. Maybe they had their weird idiosyncrasies, but that was okay. They were still able to live and produce. But then when the environment fluctuates, then you don't get the luxury to be cured in a specific situation. So every single time I feel relative equilibrium in between each frequency changes, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. And then I feel then the engines start warming up. I feel the heat. I hear the freaking tones in my ears. The temperatures are rising or falling, whichever side of it's on. I'm like, okay, here we go, another change. Okay, and so this was not going on 20 something years ago. We're in climate change. We're in it right now. We're in climate change. Okay. And so having children right now, it takes away so many lifelines from the parent. Having so much sex and or with different partners is utilizing all of your lifelines. Watching porn and all of that utilizes lifelines. Your friends are lifelines. And when you use up every last one of them and have nothing left, people don't survive because they never could be on their own. That's why if you can scale down your family and friends interaction and depending on them for you to get by, you might have a chance. And so they always use their friends and family to survive until they suck the life out of all of their friends and family and then ultimately themselves. If you want to survive, you better be a self-starter, relatively self-sufficient, and you don't depend on other people to get by. I saw somebody post on Facebook saying that, you know, we should all help each other and teach each other everything. And I'm like, you know what? I never asked anyone to teach me anything, really. You know what I did? I Googled everything. I went to the professionals to see what their spin on concepts and had discernment between an opinion and what their perceived problem and solution was versus an actual problem or solution. And how they characterized specific, you know, energies and frequencies and certain like cells and diseases and all that. Okay? So I went and did my own research. I actually Googled. I went to PubMed. I went to NIH. I went to government sources that had PhDs in those areas. And I had to figure out what was their perceived problem solution versus what an actual problem solution was, and figured out, okay, if I characterize something differently, and this is how I characterize it, here's the outcome, and then over time, then you would see things improve or behaviors mitigated, then I would be able to make an actual thesis statement that, okay, they may say disease is bad and it should be cured over here, but if I face disease and I didn't cure it and I pulled out the crap and I rested and slept, and then I saw a difference, and I noticed that if I just kept going through that process of releasing demons and eating food and all this other stuff, that this would be the way to survive versus this way. And so then you're able to develop another arm of the Hydra, another lifeline for yourself. But that would take someone who's a self-starter. Because who do you want to teach you? What's your expectations? What are the intentions of your teachers? Okay? So when you have these young millennials who have 1 billion kids think that everyone should help them do everything, oh yeah, they'll help you right out the fucking door relative to who you believe and who you follow. So you better be a self-starter, relatively self-sufficient, and you don't depend on other people to get by. You understand the need for government on certain things, but you're not dependent upon people around you to keep you alive, because what if they weren't around you? I guess you'd be dead, right? That's the fate of most people who survive through their friends and family, because if they weren't there, they wouldn't survive. The system counts on you not surviving because you're so desperate to be around your friends and family and animals and children and whatever. But if you don't really need your animals and children and friends and family, and you can't save them all, and you try to save yourself, then you'll survive. They may not survive, but that's not your problem. You'll do the best you can according to the laws and the societal contracts of your time to keep them alive and programmed in a certain way, but you know you have to save yourself because you cannot save your animals, your friends, your family, or your children. That's why I was lucky I was not trained like most of you. I may have been hot in my 30s and early 40s, but my backup was my brain. It wasn't my back. It wasn't even my vagina, okay? I don't have any kids, and I don't need to be highly sexual. Everything works, but I don't rely on any of those things. I rely on my brain to get by and strategize my survival. I don't rely on friends or family or anyone else. My husband and I are in a working partnership. And even when he was going around doing little piddly stuff like fixing lights, I was behind him watching how he fixed those lights. And I said, hey, I got to do that just in case. He's like, that's not really comforting that you want to see what I'm doing in case you have to. That's the reality. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I don't want to wait till the last minute. I said, hey, honey, you should know what I have to do, that you don't do in case something happens to me. So what happens if I get into a car accident or a big, huge bomb comes and hits my house? I mean, there's no guarantee I'm going to be alive in the future, but he should know what I do. Okay? But people don't want to think that way because it's so morbid. They don't want to, but I'm telling you, you have to be prepared for the worst. If you're prepared for the worst, hope for the best, when shit happens, you're not left like, oh shit, what do I do now? I don't have my husband or my wife to take care of this, and this for me. You got to face the reality that not everything is forever. Even in the J world, nothing's forever, because I may not die from natural causes, but I can't predict what's going to happen with China, North Korea, Russia, or anything else. So I have to assume that maybe a nuclear bomb could take out half of fucking the U.S. And so I'd be dead. Well, then he would be dead too. But who knows? I mean, stuff happens. So just prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, okay? But my backup is my brain. My brain is ultimately what is saving my ass. Because I don't need to be around people so much to give me the life. I can live on very minimal social interaction. And that's why I have that meme that says, can I phone a friend? Because that's your lifeline. When you're in these gaming shows where it's like Trivial Pursuit or trivia, they're like, well, you have one lifeline and that's your friend. Call a friend or do this or do that. Well, people are like, well, here's my lifeline. It's my friend. He'll tell me he or she will tell me how to live my life. What happens when you don't have any more of those lifelines around you? And you can't even produce your own lifelines because you have exhausted all the resources in your body, mind, and spirit. I guess you're done. Dying suddenly means you were the last line of defense. All the remedies and the drugs and everything cause your body to constantly reproduce itself out of existence. That's the cannabis world. That's all the different ivermectins and everything they're recommending in the anti-V world. All of the remedies in the holistic allopathic world causes reproduction, and it actually takes away your lifelines. It's actual opposing forces that are stuck in your body. That's the antigen stuck in your body. And when you have so much more antigen than the antibodies, which is basically fat and substance and reserves, then the negatives will outweigh the positives, and people age faster, die faster, lose their faculties faster, fall apart faster, and they die suddenly. So all the remedies and drugs and everything cause your body to constantly reproduce itself out of existence. And just also why people are so attractive, which is also why people are so attracted to puppies and kittens and children. Because the whole notion of reproducing smaller things that are not very well, not very intelligent at a young age, when you think about it, they like the cuteness of children, the cuteness of puppies, the cuteness of kittens. And it's always about reproducing new things, never about maintaining and maturing and maintaining what they already have. It's always making something new all the time. Well, could you do that with yourself? Could you maintain the old and release the excessive and still become new without without you having to die in the meantime. And that's what, when I am taking on life because of the frequencies or the new variants that are in the environment because of social interaction or whatever's going on at the time, I look like a little baby. I look like I'm bloated. That's all the offspring in my body. I become bloated. I look like a little butterball. A little freaking baby. Baby fat, right? Well, you can't have baby fat, Jillian, because you're 50 years old. Where the fuck do you think you get baby fat from? Well, because I'm rebirthing myself when you think about it. I think July 2022, I had so much of the ice cream sandwiches every single night. In the summer of 2022, I was eating ice cream sandwiches every single day, making whipped cream on top of my coffee every single day, eating whipped cream, not so much drinking so much milk because I was needing the fat. I was needing the lactic acid and from the milk. The milk gave me life. It rebirthed me, so to speak. That happened in July 2022. And that was when the frequencies were so aggressive when CERN was turned on. They turned CERN on in April and then after July 6th. And that was the same time that my body was going through that major aggressive change that not only did I felt so like bloated. And actually, what was it? Shit. It was July 2022 was when I felt really sick. And then July 2023 was when I had all that milk. So I released that demon in July 2022. Everything is now mixed together. So July 2022 is when I felt so mycoplasmically like full of stuff. And I had to pull out those Tootsie Rolls. And then July 2023 was when I gave birth to myself, which was all that, the ice cream sandwiches and all the milk and all the meat and the pork chops. So many pork chops. I was having pork chops every single day for so long. Now I have pork chops occasionally. I have spaghetti with meat. So I have a lot more of now the gluten to keep things maintained. And I have my coffee with cream like every day. Okay? And so, yeah, so you have to have a little bit of weight to you. More than, if you're really skinny, you have to have weight to you. Okay? It's all mind control and hormone control. That they want you to keep reproducing yourself out of existence, surrounded by puppies and kittens and oxytocin, pleasure and paradise. It was all mind control. Even all the legalistic religions who are still breeding so many children to this day, enslaving the women and the children. Once they understood Dr. Hayflick's discovery, the system not only encouraged you to have children, but also discouraged you to have them and recommended you all the therapies, which is another type of offspring, and remedies to cause more reproduction. So you think about where all these variants of COVID and whatever else came from. Viruses exist. Yeah, they are the people who keep mutating strains of their DNA that causes somebody else to go and try to assimilate. And some people's DNA are stronger than others, which is why some people are so much more influential. And then if you're around so many influential people and you're not as influential, they will either destroy you or convert you into their politics, religion, or science dogmas, or convert you out of existence, causing so much reproduction because the body trying to protect itself from that entity that they don't survive, even their friends and family. So that's why they're saying that children and the elderly are more susceptible to a die suddenly in diverse company because their immune system is shot. Either they're developing their immune system or their immune system is degrading. Either way, they're either on either end, they're both in deficiency mode. Developing or degrading, either way. And so those in the middle have a better chance to redirect. But when you are a child and when you are an elderly person fighting disease, and you could be even 56, 60, not really elderly, but you could be so at a deficit because of all the antigen, they're eating all your antibodies, that then, you might as well then think of yourself as an elderly person because you don't have enough immune system to protect you. You have to be one of those that cannot be in the public for it. Okay? And so, the system not only encouraged you to have children, but also discouraged you and recommended all the therapies and remedies to cause more reproduction, thus weakening your children. So that way, they won't have a chance to reproduce because they don't have any more lives left. They don't get the chance to even reproduce themselves to stay alive, not just reproduce other children. Okay, so even in this environment, kids aren't surviving, they're dying suddenly. And yeah, I would say all the therapies, I don't care what they are, public health and the remedies and all the alternative methods are causing offspring that then causes then a deletion of that person. Okay? So when you're taking all the anti-parasitics, positive times a negative equals a negative, but it's still an offspring. You just developed an offspring that's going to work against you. That's why it's so necessary to pull out the crap, because a lot of those negatives, those Pac-Mans are in your shit. But you can't do those things that are forcing your body to release, because then you could break vessels. That's why you have to condition the path to release. And that's through blowing your nose, coughing, sneezing, okay, hawking out loogies. And then when you have a clear path between your anus and your mouth, when you cough and sneeze and blow your nose, sometimes you will fart. I noticed yesterday, it was interesting. Usually when there's a frequency in the environment that was aggressive as it was, or my husband had to go to the restroom a few times, and diarrhea, that I actually felt I had a fart and I just pushed it out. And sometimes before, I would also poop at the same time. That's where you get those accidents. But I pushed out a bunch of air, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I got to go poop. I went to poop, and it was all, and so I actually I was given a chance to fart, but not shit my freaking pants. And it was pretty awesome that I developed and conditioned my lower immune system to be able to release demons without actually releasing demons, but then I released them in the toilet, not in my bed or in my pants. So you have to then condition your upper immune system to release demons. And sometimes you'll have bloody noses and all that crap, but that's part of it, because you have allowed the system to atrophy your ability to release, and you have to release demons down there. And sometimes when nothing is moving, when you have that mycoplasma, like Dr. Hayflick discovered, and you can't feel anything moving, your nose is all whatever, all dry, and your head is aching, and you can't move, you're so tired, you're not even hungry, you're not even thirsty, and you're drinking water, it's not doing anything because you feel like this web-like substance has enveloped everything. You have to figure out how to get shit moving, literally get shit moving. That's why you have to understand my method of pulling out those Tootsie Rolls out of your ass when that day comes, because it might come for some people, but some people will allow the system to not do anything. They'll feel what I felt like a couple of years ago in 2022 and be laid out and just lay out, and that's it. But they're not actively trying, because even water and milk and food may not even help you. You have to literally pull out that crap. You have to pull out those negatives. You got to pull out that monster, Mr. Freaking Hanky. And so you have to make your system move sometimes. So you have to know intelligently and intellectually what you have to do to save yourself. And I don't know people's capacity to do that. So I just say, this is what I do. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it, but this is what I do, right? Okay? And so, which is why people are falling apart and justifying it, because those little delete Pac-Mans in their body is eating away at their tendons, at their bone structure. That's cancer. When you have so much antigen versus the antibodies, that's cancer. Eating away at the bones, eating away at all your vital organs, even causing blood vessels to burst, and people dying suddenly. And people think I'm crazy and the devil. Don't worry, the system will prove how just crazy I really am when you find out the 11th hour how right I am. And so I remember when I was studying at the Landmark Education Forum way back when in the 1990s, it's out of San Francisco, I would rather be alive wrong than dead right. So some of you are so fixated on your belief system and how you think you can stop the New World Order from doing what it's doing. No, you can't stop anything. You have to save yourself. And so maybe it's time to pull back and be like, well, focusing on just the chemtrails and focusing on just the V's and focusing on just the air, food, and water and all that shit is not going to help you if you don't understand what it means to release the demons and take on the substance, regardless of what you think is poison out there. Because there's nothing poison that's FDA approved. Can your body handle it at the time? Because even if, let's say I do get a V, I'm not saying I'm going to get a V because I don't like needles and I don't see a reason for it. If they make it mandated, I do it if it's mandated. And I can still release the demons and pull out the shit and eat the food and just deal with whatever changes. But I mean, that's the thing, is that no matter what, you're going to have to pull out the crap anyways. You're going to have to eat the food. You're going to have to deal with all of the changes that are in the environment. Okay? And so sometimes, it just feel like it's not worth just focusing on it. I don't know, man. I don't know. People are people. They'll figure out what it is. I don't know. Dr. Leonard Hayflick may have discovered the limited amount of time the somatic cells can redouble itself 50 times over. However, what the establishment does not tell you is that you can invoke your new immortal germline cells to develop yet another cabinet of somatic cells and give you another 50 years to increase longevity and prolong your life. So that's why they were saying back in the Moses days that it was 150 years. They give you 3 times chances to invoke another lifeline, another 50-year lifeline. Yeah, because why 150? Why not 127? Why not 130? But he was saying, was it Moses or whatever, 150? And then what was it, Noah or Methuselah, 950 or 969 or something? The reason why the establishment does not tell you this because many of you were bred to be and only do one thing: academics, construction, prostitution, mother, wife, or authority. And it would be painful to leap to another lifespan. But now you get the freedom to try your hand at not only closing out the old world, but also welcoming in the new world and still live to tell about it. But you'd have to see beyond your current paradigm. And that's the thing. When you're stuck in those dogmatic principles of taking one side or the other, not being neutral, like Switzerland, then you're going to fall into the extremes on either end. And then you fail to take care of yourself, fail to save yourself, and then you die suddenly. You'd be one of those, be like, oh, they gave their lifeblood to the conspiracy community. They gave their lifeblood to this community. Yeah, that was the intention. Just keep you in your paradigms. But I'm telling you, that's why I focus on Switzerland. Switzerland is neutral. The foods they eat, meat, milk, cheese, and eggs. They have a beautiful society, beautiful people. That lady that I follow, Alicia, I don't even know how to say her last name. Not Olga, like I thought her name was a couple transmissions ago. Her name is Alicia. And how did I find her? Because I went to the World Economic Forum, Davos, and Googled that through Facebook and found all these different people, some from Ukraine, others from other places. And I focused on her because she looked interesting. Her background, she's in Switzerland. I'm like, how did she get to Switzerland? Oh, because she got asylum. She's one of those in Ukraine, and she got asylum because she had education. She's a woman, influential, and she's taking her society, once it's able to finally have relative equilibrium and the war is over, she'll go back to Ukraine at some point or not, who knows, and influence her society to go into a different direction. And so she's in Switzerland. She's in the land of neutrality. Switzerland is neutral. Wouldn't you want to be a Switzerland and survive versus being on one side or the other and going into constant war? So even myself, even me defending Israel, was taking a side. But you have to understand why people do what they do is because either side is being bullied by each other, and who's right, who's wrong. You can take it all the way back to freaking who knows when. But how far do you want to take it? Okay? And so instead of taking a side, defending Israel or hating Israel, because either way you're going to come off the enemy to somebody, why don't you take a neutral stance, understand both sides of the issue, and realize they're going to have to fight it out. It's not your war. It is not your war. And so take the stance of Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, and save yourself. Because the Swiss ain't suffering like we are. The Swiss are not suffering as much as we are. I wonder why. Because they're not taking freaking sides. They're just figuring out how to assimilate and figure out how to step to the next direction. And why Klaus Schwab isn't necessarily bad, but how do you tell people who are so entrenched in their one side or the other how to take a neutral stance? You can't tell people who are not neutral to be neutral. There's no way you can force that on anyone. But I wanted to see, I like to follow people who are smarter than me. Okay? I dated older people when I was in my 20s. If I was dating somebody, they'd be like 10 years older. Yeah, they thought of me as a little plaything. Okay, fine. But I was still taking on knowledge, microbes. And then I would date people who were smart, like that were smart. I would go, like, we had the dating apps, right? What was it? Yahoo Personals and Match.com and all that. And I'd find the most educated person. And I'm hot and I'm cute. I'm in Silicon Valley. So, I'm around the culture. And so I'm hanging out with postdocs and hanging out with Microsoft people and hanging out with educated people that I go to school with, hanging out and looking towards those who are just what I think is smarter than me at the time. Yes, looking up to them. But I'm absorbing the knowledge. I'm not thinking I'm less than, but I'm taking on the knowledge and learning what they know and challenging myself. Okay? So then when you look at what's going on with the World Economic Forum and they're getting such resistance from the left wing, the right wing, whatever, then I'm like, oh, it's people are resisting somebody who is smarter, right? Because you have people that don't like certain cultures because maybe they're richer and they have more money and they have more education, and so people are jealous of that and they hate them for that. Well, I don't want to hate people for their wealth or their education. I want to understand what it is that they have that I could take on for myself. Doesn't mean I have to have billions of dollars. Doesn't mean I want to end up living in Switzerland. But how can I make my life better with what they have, the knowledge they have? Where do they get their knowledge? How do they find it? And that's why I was listening to Stanford University YouTube videos way back in 2011, because they had some of their lectures that were on YouTube. And so I Googled Stanford University lecture class, and I would just listen to it. I didn't know what the fuck I was there talking about. They're talking about modernity and all this. I didn't even know what the hell. Because what direction, what context was I taking that from? I just wanted to hear stuff that was smarter than me. And that's the thing, is just like when I was younger, I would read the congressional record. I don't know why the fuck I would read it, but I read the congressional record. I had no idea what the hell I was reading. Okay? And so reading things that are smarter than you, understanding people that are smarter than you, understand why people do what they do, will then make you smarter. And then you don't need to hate someone or love someone. You just understand their point of view and you take a neutral stance to it and figure out how to save yourself. So you'd have to see beyond your current paradigm in order to save yourself and find people that are smarter than you, that are academically smarter than you, that are smarter than you in other ways, and they have concepts. Just like go to the CDC and understand their concepts. Go to Davos and World Economic Forum and read their mission statement. Understand their mission statement. Not resist it, but actually intend to understand it. But if you are in such resistance, you will blind yourself to the information that could actually fucking help you and save your ass. But the system knows how entrenched people are, and so since they can't change you, they will allow you to believe whatever the hell you want, within reason, and let you destroy yourself at your own hand. How many of you are stuck in trying to prove to yourself in this old world that is dying? So many of you are stuck in the old world trying to prove yourself that you fail to realize the world has changed. So yes, many of us will close out the old world, thank you. Many of you will close out the old world and thank you, but many will not be able to experience the new world because you'll die suddenly as you're resisting chemtrails, as you're resisting the V's. Okay? I'm not saying they're going to mandate them for everybody, but if you go into a profession that requires them for whatever reason, that's your choice to go into that profession. I work for myself. I work with my husband. He's not required to do anything except go to work. He doesn't even have health insurance. Neither do I. But we have car insurance. We have house insurance. And so if they do require anything like that, a public health therapy for whatever reason, now or in the future, I know how to deal with whatever changes that will be made during that process. And yes, evolution is change. No matter how you characterize it, no matter how painful, evolution is change. How do you support the change so you can survive it? And so many will not be able to experience the new world because they failed to make the necessary changes. You still had a lot to prove to everyone, or you're waiting until the last minute, not realizing you may not have a last minute. This weekend was very subtle, but very clear. And it will right now it's getting warmer, okay? And it will get hot again and get cold again. And so why is the temperature change so significant? It's not just a temperature change, it's how aggressive and how fast it changes. It was 50 degrees yesterday and almost hot yesterday. It was so warm outside. It was uncharacteristically warm. And then it will get cold again. No consistency in the barometer. That's the thing you have to realize. That's what climate change is. When the barometric pressure is so unstable, so are people's immune systems. So whatever cures that you're in at one moment will then be uncured when the climate changes yet again. That's why summer was so great, because it was a long summer, so it's consistent. You had parties, you had fun, hardly any disease. And then when the climate changed to fall, it started getting colder. People started getting disease and instability, cold and flu season. Then you had the V's. Then you had your long winter, right? From November to maybe March. Okay, so November, December, January, February, March, 5 months, say 5 months of stability. What is it, 12 months in a year? So when you have half the year is warm, half the year is cold, and it stays stable like that, you can get so much done. And you prepared for the sickness between spring allergy season and cold and flu season. Twice a year you get sick. But now we're getting spring and summer almost every fucking day. Every other day. How can you be consistent in a cure for one matter, but even be consistent in whatever's going on when you have to deal with fluctuations of the barometric pressure going up and down so aggressively? That's climate change, guys. That's why I heard so many sirens yesterday when it was warm, and then the barometric pressure dipped so low, more sirens. You were used to only getting sick maybe twice a year, if that. But with the barometric pressure swinging so crazily every other month, people are getting sick daily and they're dying suddenly. That's called climate change. So Dr. Hayflick realized that somatic cells can only redouble itself 50 times over. How many of you have reproduced so much offspring with issues that you are taking up those 50 lives you had a chance to go and redirect? So people are taking up, when they're having so many kids and so much disease and they're on their food mitigation diets and taking all the remedies, they're using up their lifelines. That's every single time you smoke. Every time you smoke a cannabis, every single time you take a remedy, every single time you do a surgery, every single time you mitigate food, you are now using up lifelines. Instead of gaining lifelines, you're using up your lifelines. Okay? And so that's why kids are dying suddenly. They are the 50th time redoubling itself and they don't have any more lives left when the barometric pressure changes yet again. Unless mothers do something different with themselves. Cats may have 9 lives, they say. Humans have 50 times to figure it out. Sometimes an 8-year-old is the 50th time to figure something out. So when my eyes are changing. I talked to the optometrist a couple weeks ago and I asked him, well, what does that mean when my eyes change? He's like, well, it doesn't mean that you're falling apart or dying. It just means that sometimes 8-year-olds have changes to their eyesight. Sometimes 20-year-olds have changes to their eyesight. Sometimes 50 or 80-year-olds have changes to their eyesight because they happen to land during that 50th time of redouble itself. And it's time, and things change. Which is why women, when they go through menopause, around 50, it's now their next lifeline. But how are they going to support that next lifeline? Are they going to remedy themselves to death? Or are they going to keep eating food and deal with then actually feeling their immune system? And letting it activate itself. How many 8-year-olds are allowed to figure it out for themselves? Humans have 50 times to figure it out. Sometimes an 8-year-old is a 50th time to figure something out. How many 8-year-olds are allowed to figure it out by themselves? So if they're the last lifeline of defense and they can't handle the environment, and so if they are the last line of defense and they can't handle the environment, that genetic line ends with them. So with these kids that are dying suddenly, they were the last lifeline in that family during this climate change. Because the system accelerated the environment, accelerated reproduction, accelerated fertility, and they used up their last lifeline when they could have had a lot more and gained more. When you slow down the frequencies, you have a chance to gain more lifelines. But when you accelerate the frequencies, you don't have a chance to gain more lifelines. And so people are on their last legs. People who are dying suddenly were the last lines of defense, and they don't know it. Nor do they give a shit, because they didn't feel anything. And they were so legalistic and so tunneled. You couldn't tell them a damn thing. And many of them are children with parents who don't give a fucking shit. Can you even tell a parent anything? No, because they know everything. The system weaponized their God mentality against their offspring. That's how they got you. And they made you think breeding children and animals is such a good thing when you're using up all their lifelines. That's why life gets weakened through constant reproduction and breeding. So if you fancy yourself a breeder in humans and animals, don't complain to other people when you've bred the last of your own genetic line. Okay? And that's why I'm saying, if you have girls or boys, find a way to make them okay with being on their own and cultivating their brain. Don't turn them into a farm animal. and make them breed. But that's the old world, was breeding animals, breeding children, breeding disease, breeding innovation, evolution. And now the system is like, okay, we're done with the innovation, evolution. We have 50 million companies of the same thing. Look at how many insurance companies that are out there. Look at how many, food companies that are out there. Look at how many of the redundancy, even in the population. You have your doppelgangers that are out there. They don't need hardly any of us. They don't even need America. So now you have to be the one to be like, oh shit, you're really in the Hunger Games. You are in the games of competition, and either you keep gaining lifelines or you'll use them up and you'll die suddenly. The whole J world is about gaining lifelines, not using them up. And since I've put myself as retired, I am retired. I'm gaining lifelines because I'm not working myself to death. I'm not falling into the peer pressure of acting like a Republican where you work someone to death because you're so capitalistic. You have to save yourself in this environment. If you don't, then you have no one to blame but yourself. The system is giving you all the options to find ways to cut down your lifestyle and your expenses. That's why I don't want a bigger house than this. I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses. People who have McMansions with McChildren, the McDreamies, the McSteamies, right? I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, okay? That's a lot to deal with. McLife, okay? When you don't have as much things to take care of and you can take care of yourself and everything is relatively peaceful and no drama and you know how to deal with disease and you have access to food and shelter and climate control and you don't have to be out there. Because I'll tell you, today it's going to be so sunny. Yesterday was so bright outside. I was out there for a little bit and I'm like, this is too bright. It's too freaking bright. But we had to cut down those trees because they were falling down or they would, in a storm, who knows what would happen, fall down or something else. And my husband we got them cut down, so it'll be very bright. And he'll put down limestone. We'll get fence line and put down limestone, which it'll heat up the atmosphere even more so, because that's the nature of that. I'd rather be hot and I go inside and deal with having that climate control and pay for that than wonder if that tree's going to fall in the house because the ground is so saturated with water that the roots come up, or a huge wind shear comes by and just knocks shit over and who knows what. So I'd rather just bank on just being hot than deal with things falling on me. So anyway, yeah. So if you fancy yourself a breeder in humans and animals, don't complain to other people when you've bred the last line of your own genetic line. Okay? So give your kids a chance and realize that there's no future right now in big families. There isn't. Because there's nothing at the top of the ladder. We already have a cure for cancer. That's called death. Okay? So what are you going to medical school for? We already have the tech companies. We have Google, we have Facebook, we have X, and we have different apps and things to do that. So, so you're going to go into either, be the inroad to the future or, help with the depopulation agenda. That's what your kid's future is. Either inroads to the future or part of the depopulation agenda. Because again, what are you going to the medical system for? The cure for cancer is death. And then what? Go into the holistic world and just have an alternative cure for cancer called death? Because people end up dying suddenly, or they end up in hospice, end up going to get organs taken out and everything else taken out. Or you end up having a bunch of kids and maybe they don't even survive, and even the mother may not even survive. And what are the kids going to be doing? Going to be cannon fodder for the new world wars? Going off to another country? Going off to Jordan, to Iran, to Iraq? Is that what you want your kids to do, is be cannon fodder for someone else's war? Or be like, hey, okay, find the cheapest place to live. That's why I posted that article of the cheapest place to live. I mean, be careful of the coastlines, be careful of major crime. I wouldn't want to live in parts of Illinois. Oh, hell no. But where I live in Ohio, and I'm paying $536 a month in my mortgage, husband doesn't have to work half as hard as he does, but he wants his boat and he wants, okay, fine. But if he were to let go of the boat and let go of other things and scale down his truck to something that's, a used or something, like a little regular car, not a big truck to haul a boat and haul a camper, he doesn't have to work as hard as he does. So he has room to scale back if he needs to. And he doesn't need half the shit that he has. Okay? You want your kids to have room not to paint themselves in a corner of a big house and a big car and a big lifestyle and big this and make this and make that they have no room to save themselves. And when people have the Mick lives out there, when you think about it, they're fucked. They're fucked. PEMDAS, the order of operations, right? You know PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's the order of operations when you're dealing with, was it expanded notation or expressions and all that, formulas, whatever. And so it always starts with the parents. Parentheses, the parents. Nothing is accidental, nothing is coincidental. You've always used algebra. So it all starts with you or the parents and guardians. You just didn't know you used algebra because they hid that from you. Everything is hidden in plain sight. P equals, everything starts off with the parents. All relative. If you have no children, you are the parents to the microbes in your body. E, with their exponential offspring, microbes, viruses, children, disease, and cancer. MD, multiplying, dividing everyone and everything. So you're either multiplying cancer, multiplying children, multiplying disease, multiplying viruses, multiplying all of your baubles and pleasure and paradise, or you're dividing everybody up. Oh gosh, take my side of the story. I know better. Salt, poison, Jillian's stupid. Right? So then there's division. People divide each other all the time. So multiplying and dividing everyone and everything. And then there's addition and subtraction, right? While adding and subtracting through consumption. The hospital system is the same thing. It all starts with the diagnosis. PEMDAS, parents expected to medicate, diagnose a diagnosis as soon as possible. That's when the train left the station. As soon as you get diagnosed, they're like, oh gosh, you have now a crazy disease, time to go get a treatment. That's where the train leaves the station. And so, yesterday, there were so many sirens that went off yesterday. I'm sure heart attacks and strokes are the reason why people call 911. It was hot and it was bright yesterday. Whenever it warms up, I know I feel it. My husband feels it too. And I hear it. All right? So then when I Google heart attacks and strokes with extreme weather, like heat and cold, the days with extreme heat were associated with an increased risk of heart attack, death in women versus men, and in older adults than in younger adults. Older adults were also at greater risk of heart attacks compared to younger adults during days with extreme cold or high levels of PM 2.5. I don't know what that is, but it's okay. Nowadays, athletes are dying suddenly on the field, and I'm sure heat will contribute to more of them having episodes. Okay? And of course, all the therapies are growth. So I'm not saying that people's issues with the VA/CCI/NESs are not valid. Of course they are. It's not the only thing. But that on top of all the remedies and people's lifestyles, well, everything's a factor. But even if you mitigated one factor and you still do other factors, you're still going to have the outcome is going to be the same if you're already using up your last lifelines. You have to understand that all of what you're doing is contributing to using up your lifelines and how you gain lifelines versus use them up. So, of course, all therapies are growth, all therapies, even cannabis. And it doesn't have to be that hot. It's just a rise in the temperature extremely quickly and accelerated particles. Particle acceleration. Okay? And so I even had to turn my heat down yesterday. Both my husband and I had a little bit of a stomach upset. Combination of growth, heat, and food. And we're both fine. All right? And so I read that already. And the rules of integers came from biology. Antigen equals negative. Antibody equals positive. Negative times a negative equals positive. Disease, delete. Autoimmune disorders, cancer. Positive times a positive equals disease, delete. Cancer and autoimmune disorders. Negative and positive is all relative to what is your testing negative for and positive for, and the context of the situation. Obesity is so much immune system, it will smother the vital organs. That could be all positive, right? All a bunch of antibodies, a bunch of fat and muscle and tissue and all that stuff. Underweight, so skinny, not enough protection. Continuous damage to the body because of the advanced protocols like operations and enemas and all these things that people do in the holistic allopathic will cause imbalances and breakdowns. Because when you're getting constant enemas because you don't know how to pull the crap out of your ass, you're not teaching your body how to flex and leverage the pressure from up here down there. Because you're sticking things in your body that you shouldn't be. You're sticking foreign things. Your hands are not a foreign thing. You're just pulling out crap. It's like you're helping like a midwife or a labor and delivery nurse helping the mother pull out the child out of her birth canal. When you are pulling crap out of your ass, you're helping you give birth to yourself, so that thing inside of you, that stuff that is causing all your different crazy diseases, is not taking over and destroying you. Thermodynamics. Negative times a positive equals negative entropy. Positive times negative equals negative entropy. You will always be in the negative at a deficit. That's why you can't afford to be starving and deficient in nutrition. The environment, this environment is deleting people faster. Because either they are full of antigen and hardly any antibodies, and they're afraid of food, water, and air. Usually that's blood type A and B, because they're deficient in antibodies. And they've also trapped those antigen in their immune system. Trapping too many opposing forces will cause you to be deleted faster, falling apart. Or they're full of antibodies, and eventually it will convert to antigen because they trapped opposing forces in the body, mind and spirit, usually blood type O, and so it converts the positive into a negative, and bam. That's why you don't want to be on extreme ends on either end. You want to learn how to fluctuate, because too much positive will turn into a negative, and too much negative will turn into a positive, and then that's when the train leaves the station. Mother Nature always keeps the balance when you least expect it. And that's what the whole Pac-Man, whereas male and female and the ghosts and all those little power bars or whatever you want to call that. And so then I was like thinking about when I woke up yesterday from something, and I was thinking about flesh-eating disease. Okay, it's called necrotizing fasciitis, a serious bacterial infection that destroys tissue under the skin. That's Pac-Man eating at people's live tissue, right? Flesh-eating disease occurs when bacteria enter the body through a break in the skin. People with a weakened immune system, they hardly have anything to them, can be at a greater risk of developing this condition because they're trapping those beasts inside. They're like Pac-Man. Anything on antigen on steroids is in a highly accelerated environment. So antigen are the things that go after things. Anti-gene, antigen. Then what is antibody? Antibody. Yeah, because it's all relative. You can have so many antibodies turn into antigen, and so much antigen to turn into antibodies. And either way, you have to know how to convert that information. And if you don't understand how to convert that information, then you will always be in deficit and then at risk of dying sadly. And so that's why when you're taking donations from people, as far as microbes, and even cash from people, what are you converting the microbes and the cash into? More remedies, more disease, more intolerance? Or do you might as well just develop your own cash and conversion rates that will help you, and you convert the cancer cells into good cells? How do you do that? Well, you might have to pull out some of the program that's causing the cancer cells to be so influential and metastasize. But again, you have to understand your immune system, which isn't just like, I don't know what people think their immune system is, but your immune system is everything. It's all your 11 different systems. That's your immune system. And when any one of them are compromised from anything, then that's where people have compromised immune system, because they have a compromised body because of so much rampant reproduction and remedies and things done to them that causes their immune system to be weakened. And so Giant Eagle came through. Okay, happy 50th Hay Flick Limit weekend. On to the next Hay Flick Limit, 50 more years. Here's to the next immortalized germline cell with a new cabinet of somatic cells. So then I've analogized the germline cells, the immortal germline cells, to be like the president, and then you have your cabinet of somatic cells that the president can go and interchange and be like, I'm going to change you out to be this and change you out to be this, okay? But sometimes, so when you have an immortalized germline cell and the cabinet of somatic cells are used up, then yeah, you see, Trump's gone, Biden's gone, Obama's gone, Clinton's gone, and someone else is going to take the place. And so you want to have the next immortalized germline cell to be of this world, of this community, of this society, of this environment, so you can develop then a strong cabinet of somatic cells that'll give you another 50 years, another lease on life until the environment changes, and it will, and then you're able to then fluctuate with the environment and take on more immortal germline cells with the cabinet of somatic cells. It'll give you another 50 times to redouble itself. So here's to you, Dr. Hayflick. Leonard Hayflick, born 20 May 1928, is a professor of anatomy at the UCSF School of Medicine. I dated a postdoc out of there in molecular biology. So I dated some really fucking smart people. Really smart. And they offered some of their smartness to me when I was hanging out with them, and they told me stuff about what they were doing, and even though I didn't have a context to put it in, it was so interesting because they were so fucking smart. Okay? I like smart people. I like people way smarter than me. Way smarter than me. I don't hang out with people that are dumber than me too much. Because then what happens when you hang out with people who are not as smart as you is that you end up lowering yourself to the lowest common denominator. And who wants to do that if you're trying to survive? Not end up over the fucking cliff. So you want to hang out with people who are smarter than you, or go look and take information from people who are smarter than you. I really advocate you guys reading and figuring out what these PhDs are doing without spinning it to your politics. Leonard Hayflick, born May 20th, 1928, is a professor of anatomy at the UCSF School of Medicine and was professor of medical microbiology at Stanford University School of Medicine. He is a past president of the Gerontological Society of America and was a founding member of the Council of the National Institute on Aging, the recipient of a number of research prizes and awards, including the 1991 Sandoz Prize for Gerontological Research. He has studied the aging process for more than 50 years. Notice the word 50. He is known to discovering that normal human cells divide for a limited number of times in vitro, refuting the contention by Alex Carrel that normal body cells are immortal. They're not. There are immortal germline cells that Henrietta Lacks, when they discovered that in the 1950s, when they took her cancer and studied it without her permission, so the family is getting, compensated for that because it was without her permission. But they discovered that immortal germline cells are in cancer cells. Yeah. Okay? And they're using those immortal germline cells to also produce food. Doesn't mean cancer is bad. It just depends on how it's... Cancer is when you think about the word cancer, it is all relative to the context of the situation. So when you take a cancer cell and you put it in a lab that's developing food, it's not cancer. It's a microbe that will then be able to redouble itself. It's given all the different ingredients to then develop meat and milk and cheese and eggs or whatever, right? But when you have those cells that are influential in your body taking over, then yeah, it's not a good thing. So cancer is based upon the context and it's relative to its position and what it is competing with and what's competing with it. Okay, but taking cancer cells and putting it into a lab to make food is then realizing that you want to have that kind of cancer cell in the food supply because it's giving you food that will then give you sustenance, and then you can delete or release the demons and take on the substance, and then it's not cancer, it's food. Okay? All right. And so okay. This is known as the Hayflick limit. Okay, he's overturned a 60-year-old dogma that all cultured cells are immortal. No, only a few of them are. Hayflick demonstrated that normal cells have a memory and can remember at what doubling level they have reached. He demonstrated that his normal human cell strains were free from contaminated viruses. His cell strain, W1-38, soon replaced by primary monkey kidney cells and became the substrate for the production of most of the world's human viruses vaccines. Hayflick discovered that the etiological agent of primary atypical pneumonia, also called walking pneumonia, was not a virus as previously believed. He was the first to cultivate the causative organism called a mycoplasma. the smallest free-living organism, which Hayflick isolated on a unique culture medium that bears his name. He named the organism Mycoplasma pneumonia. So if it's not a virus, then what is it? It's an immortal germline cell. That's what I'm thinking, because they don't say that. They call it a mycoplasma pneumonia, but what would be the characterization of it in another context? Okay, so Hayflick demonstrated that normal cells have a memory and can remember at what doubling level they have reached. He demonstrated that his normal human cell strains were free from contaminating viruses. His cell strain, WI-38, soon replaced primary monkey kidney cells and became the substrate for the production of most of the world's human virus vaccines. Okay. So Hayflick discovered that the etiological agent of primary atypical pneumonia, also called walking pneumonia, was not a virus, as previously believed. Well, what do they call it then? He was the first to cultivate the causative organism called mycoplasma. Well, yeah, that mycoplasma, it's a germline cell. It's an opposing force. That's what I fought back in July 2022 when they switched the CERN to be whatever it was back then, April and then July. When they turned up CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, the particle acceleration. It woke up that mycoplasma within me. It woke up the demons. Walking pneumonia. When you have walking pneumonia, you're walking and you have this thing inside of you that will eventually take over. Well, the last 3 years, it was waking up. I was seeing some crazy shit. Let me tell you, orbs were going past my head, like left and right, and you saw that in some of the videos. Okay? Walking pneumonia. It's some pretty spiritual, occultic stuff with the paranormal involved as well, okay? He's a pretty deep dude. I mean, when you think about what he discovered. And I knew I had that mycoplasma pneumonia because it was, I literally had to pull out that demon. I had to throw myself in that shower and pull out that demon that he discovered. Right now, people are cultivating that demon inside of them because they have taken remedies to stop their body from releasing. They have taken on so many remedies to even make that demon stronger. And that's causing them to age faster, lose weight faster, or gain so much weight so exponentially. And of course, their behaviors and addictions and all that. That's some crazy shit. And so, yeah, my husband, he bought me a prime rib. And I was being snarky yesterday. When vegans or vegetarians make fun of omnivores and all their steaks, but have no problem with cunnilingus, flesh is flesh, like love is love, right? Sneeze, push out children, you come from eating flesh. Sneezing and pushing out children, you come from eating flesh. You have to eat flesh. Yeah, I don't want to go and eat the guy next door. I'd rather eat a cow or eat lab-developed meat or eat a pig or eat a chicken or eat fish. But I'm not going to go and eat another human. But that's what sexuality is when you eat another human. And it's accepted in both the religious world and the atheist world. Eating humans through sexuality. Okay? Flavors of the month, then I'm being snarky too. Because it's all, the melanin or non-melanin, right? Flavors of the month, chocolate or vanilla, right? When seasoned, lemon and lime, okay, so the green and the yellow mucus, right? Yellow and green and white. All right, yeah, I'm being a little bit gross, but that's the reality. When you're eating people through sexuality, and I don't care what kind it is, that's what you're doing. And then you're sneezing out offspring. You're sneezing out babies. You're sneezing out viruses. You're sneezing out microbes. And so then you saw the picture of flesh, and then all the different, colors of the rainbow of people. And so remember, you needed milk as a child to grow strong bones and develop. I remember eating so much milk and cream and ice cream in July of 2023. And that was a literal Hayflick limit biological rebirth because I released a demon the year before and then gave birth to myself the next year. And I fed it the milk, the meat, the cheese, the eggs. Milk gives you a new lease on life and you understand the necessity of it. You've been scared away from milk because of the depopulation agenda as an adult. The system deemed certain people undesirable, so they scared them away from milk and didn't help their allergies. Allergies means your body needs those nutrients to release those demons. You have to help your body cough, sneeze, and blow its nose and release those lower demons. Kids who have milk allergies come in at a major deficit. Many kids are breaking bones and are in deficiency mode. All these holistic people who think milk is poison, they're dying and they need the company. That's why they're telling you, oh, milk's poison. Here, join me and take all my remedies and shit. I even thought milk was poison 7 years ago. My husband and another gentleman named Michael Gifford broke me of that. And so Michael Gifford knew the power of milk, and he said it, and I remember him saying that when I thought milk was poison, and he was like, no, Jillian. I'm like, okay. And he saw my Facebook, and he was fucking right. Michael Gifford was right. And so is my husband, because he drinks milk all the time. When I gave him so much of the J juice and it cured the poop in his body and he felt constipated, he drank a bunch of milk and released that demon. Because Michael understood the power of milk. My husband understands the power of milk innately. He is fucking strong with strong bones. And so there are men in my life and men in my life that were in my life who have contributed immensely in the J world and even outside the J world. And I will tell you, Midwestern men who are strong and eat milk, meat, cheese, and eggs, you have a chance to save yourself. You haven't been tainted by the coast and their fucked up diets. And maybe you're blood type O. And if you're blood type A and B, you still have a chance. But you'd have to change the way you do things. Because remember, you're in delete mode. You have to release those delete points and gain the immune system, the substance, the antibodies. That's why I stay away from the coast. Like the West Coast and their organic gluten-free everything, or the East Coast, everything has to be in a garden. Or Florida because they have issues with tolerance or to any kind of food, the American or retirement capital of the world. People are dying in Florida. Or they've given up on life because they can't handle the north, so they go down to where it's warm, and that's okay. Midwestern people, you have it made if you get out of your own way. America is the last greatest experiment. They had us all separated for a reason. Innovation and worker bees, and even culturally. And even economically. Socioeconomic status. And so in this environment, one gets sick or dies suddenly, or gets sick then dies suddenly. Appreciate sickness. Respect it. Understand the actual beneficial meaning of sickness. It's to let you know, and me know, when we have demons within, it must be released, but in the proper way, and you have to feed it. Okay? And so, la 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 la. Prime rib. Okay. Okay. So, world population, cheapest states to live in 2024. Newlyweds. There are places you can buy now for cheap. Work half-time and save your life. A couple working half-time can afford a cheap place. But I would not advise having pets or children during this climate change. Dependents add more stress. Okay? So my husband works full-time, but he didn't have to work full-time. He could actually work part-time, do a few loads a week, and still be able to afford if he took away the $321 on his boat, the $1,000 on his car, okay, and his truck, because that's kind of how shit works nowadays. He could actually save himself $1,300 just by scaling down his extracurriculars. He doesn't have to have the nice shit. That's where you want to be, is where you can actually take away stuff and you wouldn't be at a deficit. You wouldn't have to go and move somewhere else. Okay? I mean, when you think about the expense that I have, $536 for the mortgage, and then the utility is about maybe $200 for the gas and the electric. And the water is $55. Insurance, even for a smaller vehicle, it could be less than $100. House payment, I mean, I said it was $536. Internet, $100. It'd be like $1,000 a month. Two people on $1,000 a month with like, let's say a little catfish boat, so you can go boating or fishing poles. Ohio is the ultimate. It's so cheap to live here. Maybe some parts of Missouri. Okay? But California? I wouldn't live in California, New York, or Florida, or really even in the Midwest. When you're in the middle of nowhere and the lightning bolts are coming down, tornadoes going through every so often. At least here, okay, what's going to be for Ohio? Well, less snow, a lot more heat, maybe a few tornado scares. And I'm fine with that versus wondering when the sea's going to encroach upon my house, when the next hurricane's going to come take me out, you know? And I I tell you, the near the Great Lakes is the ultimate place to live, and it's relatively cheap. So if I was a millennial and had that kind of forethought and didn't have people around me saying, oh, you shouldn't do this and that and whatever, I'm telling you, man, if you're in America, I come from the American perspective. If you live in Canada or the UK or any other place, you'll figure out where I'm coming from based upon your geographics and socioeconomic stuff. But I'll tell you, Americans, you got to figure some shit out. Get out from the coastlines if you can. And it's okay to retire at 30. Work half time. Find the cheapest place to live. Figure out how to survive climate change. I'm telling you, the old world's going out the window. The environment is unforgiving. Don't let anyone tell you need to work so hard that you destroy yourself. Don't let anyone work you to death. People do that to each other. They bully and pressure people into working themselves to death. It's fucked up out there. Work your brain if you need to. Work something. But I'm telling you, people's bodies are falling apart in this environment. Okay? There are some people who are stronger out there who could work long hours in labor-intensive career fields, but for how long? The environment is not what it used to be. Intelligence and evolution, adaptation, learn how to read the room. The diet suddenly have me so concerned regardless of what you blame it on. Anything FDA approved is perfectly safe, but is it safe for you? That's why you have to talk to your doctor. Can you handle growth and penetration with growth? Can you handle being out there with diverse people? Can you really handle your job? Survival is understanding how to read society and the room and the economy. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. I give you permission to reconsider your goals right now. I give you permission to reconsider your strategy of survival, following in your parents' footsteps who are on their way out the door and sooner in this environment should be a red flag. In my opinion, retirement is not to run your body into the ground. Retirement is to get another lease on life, another 50 years. You don't have to have but one life unless you want just one life. The Hayflick limit just says, yes, you were given the first 50 years of your life for free, when you think about it. You were given the first 50 years for free, so you had to pay your dues. You had to go through all the pain and suffering and figuring out some shit and learning the hard lessons. I did, oh my God. Okay? But now you must earn the next 50 years and more. So now, those in the Gen X world that are turning 50 or have turned 50 or in that between before 50 and after 50 and 50, you have a chance to figure some shit out. You have a chance to earn now your next phase in life or live out the free one that they gave you. Okay? You were always made to be immortal. So as long as you do not fall into a volcano or get taken out by lightning because you're the only thing in the middle of a field, you just have to learn to respect life, not take advantage of it. You always had the potential to be immortal. So as long as the environment holds life. But you have to earn it. And again, you couldn't take advantage of the life in your body around you. Maybe it's time to slow down or run your body into the ground. Just because I have an opinion doesn't mean I haven't researched or science to back my claims. Of course I have. Okay? I'm not an idiot making claims of immortality without making sure it abides by the law and prove the science behind it. Yeah, you need food. You have to release the excessive negatives in your body called antigen, or else they metastasize and delete you and turn into cancer, and people fall apart. You must know your blood type and live according to your blood type, not eat according to the blood type, but live according to your blood type during climate change. I already learned my lessons. Earning your place on this earth by adding 50 more years after the initial 50 years is not easy, or everyone would be doing it. And the kicker is no one would know how old you were unless they looked at your driver's license. So, just because you're 100 years old, and people are like, oh, look, she's 100 years old. That's so amazing. Yeah, she looks like a fucking crypt keeper. She looks like The Walking Dead. Just because she's 100 years old doesn't mean anything. It just means that she's dying longer. Oh, big fucking whoop. I'd rather live longer than die longer. But people like to promote dying longer and look like The Walking Dead and be The Walking Dead, or look like Death Becomes Her, right? Like Goldie Hawn and the other chick, I forget her name, Kathleen Turner, where they had Bruce Willis, who happens to be deteriorating from a disease, kept doing plastic surgery and what was it, embalming these women into looking like they're healthy and they're young and they're beautiful, and then one day, and they look all crazy, and then one day maybe they die suddenly. I'm not talking about looking like The Walking Dead or be so plastic that you die suddenly. as your face and body keep getting bigger and more distorted. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being 50 plus years old and people think you're 30 or 20 and there's no fear of dying suddenly because you have open immune system, it closes when it needs to, and you know when to slow down in a very accelerated environment. Being very aware of your environment is adaptation. And I'm really aware of this environment and it's brutal. So I have retired, but I'm still using my brain. I'm not running my body into the ground. And I've jumped off the hamster wheel. I have nothing to prove to anyone anymore. Again, if you're looking for a cure for cancer, it's called death. So what are you doing? What are you going to school for? What are you going to medical school for? What are you going to nursing school for? What are you going to the health and wellness world for? To develop another death protocol? Oh, great. That's all we need is another death protocol. Great. Then you're working for the New World Order then, okay? If you're so against it. In my opinion, if you have something to prove you can survive during climate change without turning to all the things people are selling you on the market. Prove to people you can handle all the food supply without telling people it's poison. Prove to people you can handle the air, food, and water without saying it's poison. Prove to people you don't need to take care of the world in order to survive unless you want to go down with the ship with everybody else. Prove to people it's okay to slow down, which means you live your beliefs. You be the representation. Prove to people you have a brain and you know how to fucking use it. And so my birthday weekend, what I asked for him, what I asked for my husband, prime rib made at home, a whipped cream strawberry birthday cake, and time at home to relax. And he had to take care of some stuff with his boat, so he had to went and hang out with his friends to take care of his boat stuff. So I stayed home and I took a nap, and I needed to. And so right now, sleep is so important for me. Okay, so you can look at the benefits of sleep, look at the benefits of milk. Okay, I don't need to go over the basics with you. In my opinion, real truthers don't have many friends or hardly any friends because sometimes the truth will affect even their closest friends. That's hard when you have to censor yourself because you might offend your friends and family. And I'll tell you, we talk about sex and marriage and all this other shit. My husband's like completely the opposite about that stuff. And he came from the old world of that's the first thing is the sex and all that stuff and having to do it every single day and all that shit. And yeah, he still may want to and even every freaking weekend, but it's not always possible. Okay? It's not always possible. So even I had to really risk having this belief system, knowing what my husband's world, what he came from and what he believes in and all that stuff. Yeah, you're going to have to risk offending your husband or your wife or your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, or even your kids. Because sometimes the truth will affect even their closest friends. That's hard when you have to censor yourself because you might offend your friends and family. To me, that's not freedom. Real truthers would even see the error of their own ways, even question their own belief system, their current ones they hold today. I still question everything that I say and do, and sometimes I have to change the way I say things or do things. You want to be a real truther? Insult your audience with the truth. Even insult yourself. All of us have been told lies about whatever. Maybe it's time to tell the truth about yourself. All right? And so about energy conversion. So cancer is a biological Darwinism that you have to be strong enough to convert those cancer cells into good cells. That takes release and that takes all food. It is survival of the fittest. It's Darwinism. Okay, and sometimes cancer is the fittest, strongest thing in your body because a person degraded themselves because of remedies and food is not working for them. It's working against them because it's feeding the demons, not them. So people say that food's poison or this kind of food is poison. There's those that are in, certain worlds, certain circles say, oh, it's not what you're feeding. It's not what you're feeding well, it's not, I don't know how to say it, but they think it's a food that's poison. And they don't realize that you're feeding the demons. You're not feeding yourself because you have so much of those, of the opposing forces, the mycoplasma that is eating the food and starving you and eating you at the same time. It's like when you're kidnapped by someone and you get food delivered to you, and not only are they eating parts of your body, your kidnappers, but they're also eating the food that's being delivered to them. So you're being cannibalized by the kidnappers in your body that's eating you and the food that you're eating. And so it is survival of the fittest, and sometimes cancer is the fittest, strongest thing in your body because a person degraded themselves because of remedies and the food is not working for them, it's working against them because it's feeding the demons, not them. People say they healed their cancer with certain remedies and protocols from doctors and nurses and lay people, but yet they are still aging and having to take those protocols to keep those things away all the time. Putting things to sleep is not healing. Okay? So those in the holistic world and all the remedies and all that shit world, putting things to sleep is not healing. You're just delaying the inevitable. That's called died suddenly, when it wakes up one day and takes out the person. Conditioning your immune system to release and eat pain is painful, but worth it when you can save yourself. Because eventually time does catch up when you're taking life on credit via remedies and surgeries and whatever. In this environment, people are not strong. People are not getting the credit they're looking for. I don't want to live on borrowed time. Many people are. Okay? And so what does living on borrowed time mean? Someone who's living on borrowed time is when they has continued to live or do something for longer than was expected and is likely to die or be stopped from doing it soon. Okay? And so right now, people who are taking all the remedies and surgeries and doing all those things, they're living on borrowed time. It's just a matter of time before the climate changes and done. That's why the diet suddenly world is so prolific. Even though they're blaming it on the V's, look what they're recommending to their friends and family. All the ivermectins and the detoxes and all the different protocols that all these doctors that are all over fucking YouTube and all over the internet are recommending to people. Like major protocols of supplements and all these herbs and extracts. And I'm like, holy shit, they're destroying their friends, but you can't tell them anything. There is nothing that can take away COVID. Okay? Death. All the cures equal death. What takes away COVID is death. Figure that one out. And so, all right, let me see it. So too much energy, not enough antibodies, immune system. Okay, all right. I'm not going to go through too much. This is like redundant here. What's your 5-year plan, guys? What's your plan of action to survive climate change in your own immune system? And so, yeah. Global warming, yeah. We're going to see that global warming is going to then cover up land masses, and then when they calm down the machines, then we'll go back to the ice age in parts of the world, and then the land masses will then reappear. The waters will recede. So we're in it right now. Okay. Oh yeah, Switzerland. I want to be like Switzerland. I want to be neutral, and I want to live. Okay. And that's why I watch Eurovision, because that's ultimately what you really want to go for, is something like a Eurovision where it's diversity and people are tolerant. Hello, people. I'm not here to converse back and forth. And so the aging process, disorganized cancer genes that suck the life out of the host. And so you have 3 choices in this environment. If you don't want to release your demons, really, you let the disorganized cancer cells genes suck the life out of you, called the aging process, or you get a growth and blast them, spreading them, but the aging process is still accelerating, or you carve them out and the aging process is still accelerating, or you face them, feed them, release them through your proper exit points. And that would require some effort on your part. All cancer cells eat everything in sight, and that's why you have to release those demons if they're getting out of control. People hold genes of behaviors and traditions as well. It's all trauma-based programming, stress trapped in the body. And it's not just cancer, it's every single behavior and diagnosis you ever held. Some people choose to keep those demons, that baby, inside of them because that's their identity. Or learn how to release those demons properly. And so, yeah, I'm not going to read all that. But the genome database has all the different cancer cells. And then people want to go and take away their breasts or different parts of their body because they have inherited those cancer cells and they don't know how to release them. All they know how to do is try to do preventative, but you can't prevent something that's in your genetic line. You have to go and change your genes. But how do you do that? You have to release the demons and take on the infection of the new environment and release demons and eat food. And I couldn't tell you if that was something that you could do. And so I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop right now. And if I have to go and read these from, yeah. But I'm good right now. I've said enough. I've said enough. So that's all I'm going to say at this point. I'll go into Gen X and all that shit maybe tomorrow. Who knows? All right. So I'm just done. It's hot. And okay, that's it. You guys will figure it out. I'll talk to you later. Bye.